Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome, welcome everyone, how are you all? Good evening. Hello, comments your beautiful names. Welcome. How are you all? Hi Muslim, how are you? Muazzam. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Mimi. Here is yours. I am good. Thank you so much for asking, dear. Hi, dear Zad. Here is yours. Welcome. Hi. Welcome, everyone. Uh, Thank you so much for joining. How are you? Thank you, dear. Let's see who is next. Zad. Hi, dear Aliyah. It is a good name. I am good. Good to know. Hi, dear Sophia. It is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Abby. Here is yours. Hey, dear Krijal. Here is yours. And Kunal. Thank you for joining. Hi, dear Parvati. Parvati. Here is a good name. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. Leela. Hi, dear Leela. Here's a good name. Hi, dear Marua. Here is yours. What a unique name you have, dear. Hello, dear Ridhima. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, dear Alex. Here is yours. Hi, dear Yashvi. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Noor. It is a good name. Hi, dear Isha. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Noor. Here is yours. Hi, dear Fatima. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Arush. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Marwa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Krishnati. What a unique name you have. Krishnati. Here is yours. Hello, dear Roy. It is a good name. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Diana. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jessica. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Clara. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mahi. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Erin. Here is yours. Hello, dear Samira. Here is a beautiful name. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Zay. Here is yours. I am good too. Thank you so much for asking. Apeksha. Hello, dear Apeksha. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nisha. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Farida. Here is yours. Hey, dear Madeline. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Ray. Here is yours. My favorite color is black. Hello, dear Samira. Purple and maroon. Hello, dear Diksha. Here is a good name. Thank you for joining. Hi, dear Emerson. Here is yours. How are you? Awesome. So good to know, dear. Let's see who is next. Renu. Hi, dear Renu. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you so much, dear. Lejla. Hi, dear Lejla. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jasley. Here is a beautiful name. Oh, thank you so much, dear. Lots of love. Hi, dear Naya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ritvika. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Okay, let's see who is next. Chloe. Hi, dear Chloe. Here is yours. Hi, dear Maria. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ananya. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screens and please don't spam Samra and Mythical. What is your name? Sophia. Hello, dear Sophia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ayan. How are you? Welcome back. Hi, dear Ishal. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Jilan. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Audrey. Hey, dear Audrey. Here is yours. Hi, welcome back, BMW guy. After so many days, how are you doing? Zayed back. Here is yours. Hi, dear Asad. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear David. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Zane. It is a good name. Hello, dear Evelyn. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Arfa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Janet. Here is a beautiful name. What a unique name you have, dear Janet. Hi, dear Basia. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Anaya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Dishyab. Wow, what a beautiful name you have. And what a unique name you have, dear. Here is yours. Hi, dear Lira. Here is yours. Hey, dear Haiti. Here is a good name. Hi, welcome back. How are you? Hi, dear Owen. Here is yours. Let me add the question. What is your favorite game? Let me add the question, guys. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button in the right corner of your. Oh, you're most welcome. Hi, dear Amog. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Brett. Here is yours. How are you? M R and G. You wanna screenshot it? Go for it, dear. Roblox. Can you do Evelyn one more time, please? I will subscribe. You want a screenshot of your good name, dear? Why not? Here is yours, and you can watch my live later too if you want a screenshot, or you can take it now as well. Hazel. Oh, hi. Amol bhai, welcome back. How are you? Okay, let's see who is next. Hi, dear Lisa. Here is a good name. My chat is stuck, I think. No, you're back. Hey, dear Dania. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Twinkle. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Lela. Here is yours. How are you? Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Ashley. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Ataya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hazel. Here is a good name. How are you? Hi, dear Keishan. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear. Oh, happy birthday, Soliha. Soliha or Solia? Solia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Nilanka. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. I don't know why the chat is stuck on my other phone. Hello, dear Tayyab. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Devan. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Raha. Here is yours. How are you? My name is Tinkle. Hello, dear Tinkle. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Avyab. Avyab, here is yours. Hello, dear. Oh, what's your good name? Happy birthday, Mija. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Asad. Here is yours. Hi, dear Bihu. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Ivan. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Sonali. Here is a good name. Happy birthday, dear Aina. Here is yours. Hello, dear Arthur. Here is a good name. How are you? Oh, happy birthday to you too, Lushera. Hi, dear Lushera. Here is a good name. Hey, dear Danby. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Love Kush. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for your love and support, dear. Lots of love. Hi, dear Gulsena. Here is yours. What a beautiful name you have. Hi, dear Sonu. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Nate. Here is yours. Happy birthday. Hi, dear Han. Here is yours. Thank you for subscribing. Let's see who is next. My name is Mija, but Mia, the J you do not say. Okay, dear Mija. Here is yours. Now the J is prominent. Hello, dear Art. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Miriam. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you for joining. Hi, dear Kareem. Unfortunately, I know about this spam. Hi, dear Luki. Here is yours. Hey, dear Max. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Saik. Here is yours. Hello, dear Haya. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Myra. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Haya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Riemann. Here is a good name. How are you? Let's see who is next. Jelani. Hi, dear Jelani. Here is a beautiful name. Hey, dear Carmen. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Asma. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, ¿cómo estás? Hello, dear Bushra. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sehaj. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear 6-7 for you. Let's see who is next. Jomok. Hello, dear Jomok. Here is yours. Hi, dear Shivani. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Hassan. Here is a good name. Let's see who is our next subscriber. Shubhatran. Hello, welcome back. How are you? Here is yours. Hi, dear Deepthi. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Andre. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Sarah. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Zoha. Here is yours. Welcome. Hello, dear Mansoor. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe and like button. Hi, dear Mako. Here is yours. Who is saying baby monster? Hi, dear Ukasha. Here is a good name. Hi. Oh, what's going on? Hello, dear Omid. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mahin. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Zada. Here is yours. Hello, dear Fatima. Here is a good name. Thank you for subscribing, dear. Hello, dear Banu. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Arush. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Salima. Let's see who is next. Hey, dear Lucky. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Sowan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Farah. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Kirti. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Mia. Here is yours. Hey, dear Ashi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Nama. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Kathy. Okay, for you, dear. Hi, dear Sagnik. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Emma. Here is a beautiful name. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Arya. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Nabiha. Here is yours. Hello, me. What's a good name, dear? Hi, dear Calf. Here is yours. Hello, dear Daniel. Here is a beautiful name. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Salohiddin. What a beautiful name you have. Thank you so much for joining, and don't forget to press the subscribe button, guys. Let's see who is next. I literally like the emoji. Hi, dear Adyan. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Massey. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hofsa. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Musa. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screens and let me tie my hair just for a minute. Just wait for a minute. Hi, welcome. Macha, welcome back. How are you doing today? Let's write your good name, dear Maja. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ali Hamza. Here is your good name. Hi, dear BDS Army. Welcome. Here is yours. Hello, dear A and O. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Vanny. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Maria. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Gian. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Neely. Here is yours. How are you? Hey, dear Bacco. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sitam. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Yara. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Zara. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mia. Another Mia. Welcome back. Hi, dear Farah. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Akron. Here is yours. A and A. For you, Ayat. Hi, dear Ayat. Here is your beautiful name. Welcome back, dear. How are you? Hello, dear Julia. Here is yours. Thank you. Hi, dear Gio. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Inara. Here is a beautiful name. My name is Ishal. Hello, dear Randava. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Melina. Here is your good name. Let's see who's gonna be the 50 liker, guys. S and H. Here is yours. Hello, dear Purv. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sophie. Here is a good name. How are you doing? Hello, dear Liz. Here is yours. Hi, dear Emma. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Sarah. Another Sarah we have. Welcome. How are you? Hello, dear Ilakshi. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining again, dear. It is a good name. Hi, dear Lee. Here is yours. Double down on your screens. Hello, dear Idris. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Asma. Here is yours. Hello, dear Pizza. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear. Uh, it's okay. What's a good name? A and Z. Here is yours. Hi, dear Almar. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Era. Here is yours. Double tap on your screen, guys. Let's see who is next. Raza. Hi, dear Raza. Here is yours. Amal, why are you here? Hi, dear Eliza. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Andra. Here is yours. Thank you so much. Lots of love. Hi, dear. What's your name? Mahrosh. Here is yours. You have such a unique name, dear. Mahroush. Hi, dear Dhanya. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Amy. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Priska. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, hi. Welcome. Zahara. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kumush. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Christina. Here is yours. Thank you for joining, everyone. You're most welcome. You're lots of love. Yes, dear, it's unique name. Yeah, you have such a unique name. What's its meaning? I am good. How about you? Let me check. Unlimited A. Hadassah. Hi, Hadassah. Stay hydrated, guys. Hadassah. Hello, dear Hadassah. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screen and don't forget to press the subscribe button there. Hello, dear. What's your name? Jaganaram. Jaganaram. What a unique name you have. Sophie. Sophie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Moon. Oh, okay. It is the meaning of your name. Nice. Hi, dear Tiru. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Data. Here is yours. Oh, you're most welcome, dear. Thank you. Hi, dear Muniba. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Buglam. Here is yours. You have such a unique name too, dear. Hey, dear Maxon. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Anu. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Himani. Here is your beautiful name. Next name is Sim. Hello, dear Sim. Here is yours. Next is Rance. Hello, dear Rance. How are you? Hello, dear Peritza. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Pauline. Here is yours. Guys, don't forget to double tap on your screens, and there is a subscribe button waiting for your finger press. Come on! Double tap on your screens. Double tap. Double tap. Lela. Hi, dear Lela. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Anu. Here is yours. How are you? Okay, he's young for you. Abdul Qayyum. Hi. Hi, dear Abdul Qayyum. Thank you for joining. How are you? Hi, dear Ari. Is your good name? Hello, A-list. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Daria. Hi, dear Daria. Here is yours. Welcome back. Oh god, the stream is lagging. Mahi. Hello, dear Mahi. Here is yours. Let me check. Let's see who is next. What do you mean, guys? Step down. What do you mean by this? Let's see who is next. Adriana. Hi, dear Adriana. Here is a good name. Hi, dear. Let's see who is next. Rabia. Hi. Oh. Yeah. Rabia. Here is yours. Gracias. Hello, dear Sam. Here is yours. Yara. Hello, dear Yara. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Oh, that was you. Alucard. Okay. Hi, dear Hadia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Keela. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Perla. Here is yours. Abdul Qayyum, your name is done, man. Where are you from? Hello, dear. What's your good name, dear? Adriana is done, but I can't understand this language, dear. Perla. Yeah, why not? You have such a good name, dear Perla. Hi, dear Sakina. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Abby. Here is yours. Hello, dear Rowan. Here is your good name. Abdul Qayyum, please don't use too much emojis, man. It is called spam. Please. Hi, dear Anam. Here is yours. Josephine. So sorry, dear Josephine. Didn't mean to ignore you. Here is yours. Hi, dear Alia. Here is a good name. Hey, dear Musa. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Melissa. Here is a good name. Abdul Qayyum, I want you, bro. But you are doing the same thing. Please don't do this. Zimmel. Hi, dear D. Zimmel. This is called work. Hard work. Hi, dear Pooja. Here is yours, and I do have a job too. Accept this. Hi, dear Kelvin. Kelvin. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Momina. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Megan. Here is yours. How are you? Let's see who is next. Okay, dear Alucard, please stop spamming. Now I notice you. Here is yours. Hi, dear Noor. Here is yours. Hello, dear. Hi, welcome. What's your good name, dear? Step. Let's see who is next. Adib. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hajar. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Halima. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe and like button. Let's see who is next. Andrea. Hi, dear Andrea. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Amanda. Here is yours. Nice, thank you. Okay, what's your name, dear? Charlie. Hi, dear Charlie. Here is yours. Hello, dear Noemi. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for your love and support, dear. Hey, dear Shima. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Paulo. Okay, dear Paulo. Here is yours. AC. Hello, dear AC. Here is yours. How are you? Welcome. Thank you. Shri. Here is yours. Hi, dear Malik. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Anshika. If you read this, say hi, girlies. Hi, how are you? Tanya. Hello, dear Tanya. Here is a good name. D Z. Let me check the spelling. UNISAN and I. Hard to pronounce, but yeah, it is yours. Let's see who is next. Hello, dear Umbul. What a beautiful name you have, Benin. Umul Benin. Wow. Hi, dear Zahra. Here is yours, Ali and Malik. Hi, dear Ali. Here is yours. How are you? Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, Sheetal. How are you? Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Arya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Joy Ray. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Elena. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Soling. Hello, dear Soling. Here is a good name. Let's see who's gonna be the 6-7 liker. Hey, dear Jackie. Here is yours. Ibrahim. Hello, dear Ibrahim. How are you? Here is a good name. Hi, dear Elda. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lela. Are you the same Lela or the different one? Welcome. Hey, dear Hiyab. Here is yours. Hiyab. Hello, dear. Hi, Yara. Done right? What? Hey, dear Vera. Here is yours. D and H. Oh, thank you so much. Guys, double tap on your screens. Let's see who is next. Hello, dear Samreen. Here is yours. Hi, welcome. Oh, walaikum assalam. Mahi, welcome back. How are you? It is a good name. Hi, dear Dahlia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Noshad. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Dua. Here is yours. Hello, dear Adib. Here is a good name. Hello, Walaikum Salam, Subgaji. How are you? Here is yours. Hello, dear Natalia. Here is a good name. How are you? Hello, dear Selma. Here is yours. Hello, dear Elda. Welcome to Reska. TEREZKKA. Mahi. Hi, welcome, dear Mahi. Hello, dear Neely. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Luna. Pata nahi Zipka ji. Here is yours. Hi, dear Amina. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Anna Clara. Welcome back. How are you? Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Sophie and other Sophie we have. Welcome, dear Sophie. How are you? Hi, dear Adnan. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Maurice. Here is yours. Hello, dear Viren. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zarinab. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Arohi. Here is yours. How are you? Guys, double tap on your screen, please. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Anubhave. Anubhave. Here is yours. Let's see, Vera. Hi, dear Vera. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lee. Here is yours. Hi, dear Holly. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Kritika, here is yours. How are you? Elda, dear Elda. Hi, dear Shireen, here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Karan, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Soumya, here is yours. Hey, dear Ayaz, here is yours. Ayaz, not Ayan. Oh my god, what I am writing. Ayaz, here is yours. Hello, dear Sayyida Dua. What a beautiful name you have, dear. Here is yours. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to double tap on your screen. Hey, dear Emily, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Sabruba. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Are you? Here is a good name. Hi, dear Marley. Here is yours. Hello, dear Majid. Here is a good name. How are you? Let's see who is next. Bahar. Hi, dear Bahar. Here is your most welcome, dear Dua. Hi, dear Oman. Here is yours. Hello, dear Isa. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Mehdiya. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, you're most welcome, dear. Lots of love. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, dear Kano. Here is yours. Hi, dear Chloe. It is a good name. Hi, dear. You're most welcome. Lots of love, dear. Let's see who is next. Rebecca. Hello, dear Rebecca. Here is yours. Zafarullah. Hello, dear Zafar. How are you? Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Ayla. Here is yours. You're most welcome, dear Bahar. Hi, dear Amna. Here is yours. Thank you so much, dear girlie. Hey, dear Harry. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hey, dear Arush. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Verda. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nicole. How are you? Here is yours. Hello, dear Isha. Here is a good name. Hi. Thank you, dear Janet. Here is yours. You want me to write my handle for you? Oh my god. What I am writing. For you, dear love. Here is yours. Hi, dear Iman. Morning. Tomorrow morning. 11 p.m. 11 a.m. Hey dear Ayman, here is yours. Hi dear Ramla, here is a good name. Hi dear Aubrey, here is yours. Hello dear Kirat, here is a good name. Kirat, oh my god. Kirat, here is a beautiful name. Hi dear Sandra, here is yours. Roblox, good to know. Hi, dear Isabella. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Let's see who's next. Hey, dear Anna. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Anderson. Here is yours. Let's see who is our next subscriber. Navira. Hi, dear Navira. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Hey, dear Sky. Here is yours. Hello, can you write Jessica? Here is yours, dear Jessica. Hi, dear Nadia. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Yasin. Yasin. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ace. Here is a good name. Welcome back. How are you? Hi, dear Uni. Here is yours. Hello, dear Marcus. Here is your good name. How are you? Hi, dear Star. Here is yours. Keep shining always. Hi, dear Jianxi. Here is your blockbuster and Subway of Jianxi, right? Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear dude. It is a good name. Hi, dear Afrin. Here is yours. Afrin. Hi, dear Toshinka. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear human. Here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. I think there is something in my eye. It's irritating me. Oh no, it's my hair. Hi, I am Noor. Welcome, dear Noor. Just give me 1 minute, guys. Why my eyes are. Oh, mommy. Oh. Okay, Noor. Hi, dear Noor. Thank you so much for your patience, guys. Hi, Usman. How are you? क्या आपको हम कोर्स आती है बहुत ज़्यादा आप लोगों को नहीं आती बस Hi dear Usman, here is yours. Hello dear Amira, here is a good name. Mrs. Venom, what a name. Here is yours. Hi dear Madeline, here is your good name. Hi dear Sonia, here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Aisha, here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Hi dear Nova, here is yours. Hey dear Teherine, here is a good name. Oh, with M. Hi dear Burhan, here is yours. How are you? Hello dear Piper, here is a good name. Hello dear Mansoor, here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Ira, here is a good name. Hello dear Elisa, here is yours. Hi dear Shiza, here is a good name. मुझे तो है भाई आपको बस भूल जाते हो देखो ये मोजिम भाई को पता है कितने दिन से नहीं आए मैं तो रोज आती हूँ ना Hi dear Sundar, here is yours. आप नहीं आते बस What is your name? My name is Ishal. Hello dear Nicole, here is yours. Yeah, only one. Hey dear Ira, here is your good name. Hi dear Kabir, here is yours. Hello dear Mimi, here is a good name. Please don't write your name in paragraph, dear Satyam. Just write once. I can write for you. Here is yours, but please don't write in paragraphs, dear Kavya. Please don't do this. Hello, dear Julie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Shiha or Shiza. What is your good name? Aisha is done, dear. Riyan is done, dear. Jinder. Hi, dear Jinder. Here is yours. I don't know why my chat is getting stuck on the other phone. है ना और मैं भी पंखे के नीचे बैठ के देख लो हम दोनों गरीब पंखे के नीचे बैठ के देख रहे हैं सिर्फ जी मैं और आप यारा और वो एसी में बैठ के भी नहीं आए देखो कैसा जुल्म है ना Hi dear Julie, here is yours. Hi dear Daphne, here is a good name. Hello dear Nada, here is yours. How are you? Hello dear Khadija, here is a beautiful name. Hi dear Nike, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi dear Julie, here is a good name. Hi dear Amal, here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screen. Let's see who's gonna be the 100 liker. Eliza. Hello dear Eliza, here is a good name. Hi dear Rihanna, here is yours. आप कहती हैं तो मैं फ्रिज के सब्जी वाले डिब्बे में आपको बैठ के दे सकती हूँ Hi dear Noha, here is a good name. पता है मैं अपनी मम्मा को बोल रही हूँ मम्मा मैं ऐसा करती हूँ ये फ्रिज में से सारी चीज़ें निकाल के ना उसमें बैठ के लाइव कर लेती हूँ Hi dear Jan, here is yours. Hi dear Munira, here is a good name. Hi dear Sanvi, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hey dear Elma, here is a good name. Hi dear Kavya, here is yours. Hello dear Prabhat, here is yours. Prabhat. Hello dear Devron, here is a good name. How are you? Hello dear Liam, here is yours. Double tap on your screens. Vietnam, are you from Vietnam? Hey dear Ayman, here is yours. Hi dear Harris, here is a good name. Free Fire and Roblox, oh good to know. Hello dear Xander, here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Shiha, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see who's gonna be the 100 liker, guys. Let's see. Sim. Hana. मेले में बिछड़ी हुई. Hi dear Alice, here is yours. Hi dear Shubi, here is a good name. Hello dear Marjona, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi dear Stella, here is a good name. Sahadev. Okay, please don't write your name in paragraphs, dear. Just comment your name. Beautiful name, Sahadev. Let's see who is next. Hi dear Ramon, here is your beautiful name. Hi dear Umar, here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Sharon, here is Sharon. Here is a good name. Let me drink some water. Stay hydrated, guys. Shazia or Zioshe? Could you please confirm? Julian. Julian, here is yours. Hi, dear Yamin. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Elias. Here is yours. Hey, dear Grace. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ayu. Here is yours. Hello, dear. Okay, Zio Shay, I think you wanna say. Is this right? Shadia, welcome back with the same spam, dear. Shadia. You have such a beautiful name, dear Shadia. But just comment once. Don't write your name in paragraph, dear Shadia. Dear love. Hi, dear Elena. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Lukman. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Amar. Here is a beautiful name. Let's see who's gonna be the 1/10 liker. Purvi Tiwari. Purvi Tiwari. Tiwari. Hi, welcome. Hello, dear Mia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Semenian. Semenian. ये वाला ज़्यादा ऐसे लगता है इधर से स्वेल हुआ हुआ है मेरा हाथ, है ना? देखें डिफरेंस दिखेगा आपको। सेवेनियन कुछ मैंने एंगल ऐसा कर लिया, ऐसे लगता है मेरा हाथ कितना मोटा है, लेकिन इतना है नहीं। हाथ मेरे ना इधर-इधर से स्वेल हो जाता है। So Bliss, welcome back, dear So. How are you? Oh, Radhe Shamji, welcome back. Have to go now. And so, can you write in Arabic Dahliya before I go? Dahliya. Oh, let me check how to write. Like, I have to write this. Dahliya. Is it right? Hi, dear Virgil. How are you? Welcome back. Lots of love, dear. How are you doing? Let's see who is next. Sarah. Hi, dear Sarah. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mary. Here is a good name. Radhe Shamji, what was your name? I just forgot. I think Nitin or Netik. Hey, dear Adam. Here is yours. Hi, dear Adi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Nancy. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. TMR Cuban. What is the meaning of this? Hey, dear Andrea. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Sri Lakshmi ji. How are you? कैसी हैं आप? लक्ष्मी का ऐसे खा लिया मैंने, देखो। Sri Lakshmi. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, Janet. How are you, dear? Hello, dear Janet. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Aurora. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sia. Here is a good name. Mireille. Thank you, dear Mireille. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ruby. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Fatima. Here is yours. Netek. Hi, dear Netek. Here is a good name. Welcome back. Radhe Shamji. Hi, dear Daka. Here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screens to like this live and don't forget to press the subscribe button right there. Double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Lana. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Ellen. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Donna. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Shivraj. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Anaya. Here is yours. Sugaji, are you here? Hi, dear Sad. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, dear Asia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Javik. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. आज आप मुझे बता दें कि आपके पास कौन सा फ़ोन है. छैया छैया वाला. Hi dear just Roop, here is a good name. पता है अभी भी इसका पैनल खराब हो जाता है कभी कभी. Hi dear Sneha, here is yours. Hi dear Roblox. Oh good. Dua. Capital D. Okay. Let's try it with capital D. Dua. Here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screen. हाँ जी, इसका. Hi dear Mia, here is yours. Hello dear Yuvika, here is a good name. अभी मैंने recently नया डलवाया था इसका पैनल. Like 4 महीने पहले समझ लें. Hi dear Diva, here is but उसके एक वीक बाद ही खराब हो गया दोबारा. Hi dear Lukman, here is a good name. जो मैंने थोड़ी बहुत पॉकेट मनी रखी हुई थी ना वो इस पे लग गई थी जोड़ के जो रखे थे. फिर उसके बाद भी ठीक नहीं हुआ. जब ज़्यादा काम करो ना इस पे तो ये ऐसे हो जाता है. बट कोई नहीं, हम चला रहे हैं, जुगाड़ू लोग हैं, चला रहे हैं अब जब तक चलता है. हाय डियर रात शाम में आपसे अरे calm down. Hi dear Laiba, here is a good name. Hello dear Vivi, here is yours. Double tap on your screens, come on. Don't forget to like and subscribe. मेरे नाखून में भी नहीं, नाखून में नहीं गई, बच गया. Abdul Rahman. Hey Abdul Rahman, where are you from? Here is a beautiful name, dear. Thank you for joining. Let's see who is next. आपको एक फोन क्या गिफ्ट कर दूं? कल से मैं कटोरी लेके बैठी हूँ चौक में. हाय डियर सबा, मेरे पास एक और है लेकिन ना उसकी मज़ा नहीं आता उससे काम करने का. Hey dear Kevin, here is yours. Thank you, you're most welcome. मैम मैं आ गई. कौन है ये आने वाली? Oh अमूल भाई, welcome back. Hi dear Aisha, here is yours. Let me write. अमूल भाई आ गई हैं. Here is yours. Hi dear Zush, here is a good name. Hello dear Abby, here is yours. Hi dear Fiza, here is yours. How are you? Islamic zone. Let's write for you. Double tap on your screens. Let's see who's gonna be the 117 liker. Hi dear Zoe, here is yours. Hi dear Alice, here is a good name. Hi dear Rebecca, here is yours. Thank you. Welcome back Safu. How are you doing? तो बड़ी यहीं पे ही रहिएगा, ठीक है ना? एक बंदे को दुरुस्त करवाना आपसे मैंने. Hi dear Jane, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi dear Maher, here is a good name. Hello dear Sansika, here is yours. Hi dear Zahara, here is a beautiful name. Okay. Hi dear. Okay, dear Zush want a screenshot of our name. So here is yours. Go for it now. You can watch my live later too. Your name is done at 1 hour 4 minutes of the live. Guys, double tap on your screens and Ayan ji. Are you Ayan bhai? Wait, are you Ayan bhai or another Ayan? जी जी, सच्ची में शुक्र है आज आपने भी मुझे रोका, नहीं तो मेरे कान तरस गए थे सुनने के लिए. आप बताएं किसको सीधा करवाना था. अभी रुक जाए, अभी रुक जाए, अभी रुक जाए बस. Hi dear Shifa, here is yours. Hello, dear Julie. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Maria. Here is yours. So अच्छा आप कोई और अयान भाई हैं, मुझे लगा शायद पहले वाले हैं. मैम 167 लाइक्स कब होंगे? जब करेंगे ना तब होंगे. चलो जल्दी जल्दी करो सारे. Hi, dear Sue. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Abira. Here is yourself. Who are you here, brother? How are you doing? Why are you so quiet now? Hi, dear Ayan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Rupon. U Rupon. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kiara. Here is a good name. कौन जा रहा है? किसने बोला बाय? अयान ने. ओह अच्छा, मुझे लगा शायद सैफू भाई चले गए हैं. Looking for your comment. Hi, dear Jordana. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sharon. Here is a good name. Hey, dear Alina. Here is yours. Hi, dear Iwawa. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? आप कहाँ रहते हो? मैं अपने घर में. Hi, dear Iman. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Selena. Here is yours. सच में देखो अभी तक कमेंट नहीं आया कोई भी. Sarah, please. I am reading. Hi, Sarah. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear Sarah. Let's see who is next. Guys, double tap on your screens. हैं मतलब कौन सी जगह? क्या ही बताऊँ अब मैं. Hi, dear Althea. Here is a good name. Hey, dear Noah. Here is Noah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Maliha. Here is a beautiful name. कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. मैंने वीडियो अपलोड किया हुआ, उसमें डिटेल से सारा बताया था, वो जाके देख लें प्लीज. And let's see who is next. Kunal. Hi, dear Kunal. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Manar. Here is yours. Yogita. Hi, dear Yogita. Here is a beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Sana. Here is yours. Hello, dear. क्या नाम है आपका? ईमान. अभी अभी मैंने पहले भी लिखा था ये. Here is yours. शिवगा जी का दूसरा नाम है. Hi, dear Reva. Here is a beautiful name. है ना शिवगा जी? Hi, dear Saf. Here is yours. Okay. What's your good name, dear? Althea. Okay, okay. Althea. Double tap on your screen, guys. Double tap on your screen. Oh, she wants a screenshot and I am doing this. Oh my god. So sorry, dear. Sorry, I forgot that you are taking screenshot. Hi, dear Azar. How are you? Hi, Sana. Hello, Kastra. Sana, Azar, and Kastra. Sana, Azar, Kastra. Sana, Azar, Kastra. Sana, Azar, Kastra. शुक्र है याद हो गया मुझे. देखो. Hi, dear Safia. Here is yours. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. दूसरा नाम नहीं है, ये ओरिजिनल नाम है पूरा. ओ हाँ ना, मतलब आपका सेकंड नेम है ना, जैसे सिबगा ईमान आपका पूरा नाम है ना. Hey, dear S. तो पहला सिबगा हुआ, दूसरा ईमान हुआ, उस सेंस में मैंने बोला. Hi, dear Pagan. Here is a good name. What's a good name, dear? Hi, dear Aisha. Noah. Okay, Noah. After this. Aisha, here is yours. Okay, Noah wants a screenshot. Hi, dear Noah, here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screens. I'm doing again this. Sorry. Come on, take the screenshot right now. Diva. Hey, Talia. Maria. Diva, Talia, Maria. Diva, Talia, Maria. Diva. Hi, dear Diva. Hello, dear Talia. Hi, dear Maria. याद करिए मोमल भाई, फिर मुझे भूल जाता है ना. 3 याद करके लिखेंगे अब हम. Hi, dear Servinos. Here is yours. गर्मी के साइड इफेक्ट्स है ना, मेरे सर पे चढ़ गई है अब, इसलिए उल्टे काम करती हूँ मैं कभी कभी. Hi, dear Leah. Here is yours. Hello, dear. आज मैंने भी ईद के कपड़े ले लिए. हाँ वाह, इतनी जल्दी मैंने नहीं ली अभी तक. नहीं, मेरा एक ड्रेस तो तैयार है. वेलकम बैक. मैं भूल गई थी क्या नाम था, अब मैं बात नहीं करूँगी. हाय डियर जहरा. फोकस करते हैं, फोकस. हाय डियर हलीमा. हेयर इज़ ए गुड नेम. ईद कब है? 27 को है डियर. Masfi. Here is a good name. Hi dear A and K. Here is yours. Hi dear Gazelle. Here is a beautiful name. Who wants a screenshot? Seher. Okay, dear Seher. Here is yours. Safu, are you gone? Or are you there? No comments today. How is it possible, dear Safu? Hello, dear Milena. How are you? Double tap on your screen, guys. Parsnip. Parsnip. Maryam Eva. Parsnip Maryam Eva. Parsnip Maryam Eva. Parsnip Maryam Eva. I am learning the names. Parsnip Maryam Eva. And let's see. Parsnip. Maryam. And here is yours. Eva. Here is yours, dear Eva. Hello, dear Mundaha. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Milena. Hi, dear Milena. Here is a good name. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. रात को नींद में भी ऐसे ही बोल रही होंगी अम्मी अब्बू आपी. Hi, dear Nabiha. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Lucia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Aiza. Here is a beautiful name. Aiza. ठीक लिख रही हूँ क्या मैं, या फिर मैंने स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक किया है? Let me check the spelling again. Yeah, I am on the right track. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens like this. Let's see who is next. Have to Kurtul. What are your nickname you have, dear? Here is yours. Let's see who's gonna be the 140 liker. Yeah, have to complete 40 yet. Hello, dear. क्या? Piano? Hi, dear Hush. Here is yours. Hi, dear Garana. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hey, dear Daisy. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Silola. Here is yours. Welcome back, dear. How are you? Hi, dear Yash. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens, double tap on your screens, double tap on your screens. Hi dear Cassie, here is a good name.